It was just after midnight when I heard the front door creak open. My heart jumped. The house had been silent for hours and I wasn't expecting anyone. The sound was small, but it sliced through the quiet like a scream. I grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen counter and hurried to the hallway. That's when I saw her, my daughter, Emily. She was standing in the doorway, shaking, her clothes torn, her knees scraped, her face pale as snow. There was blood on her arm, but what frightened me most was her eyes. Wide, empty, almost frozen in terror. "Emily, what happened?" I rushed to her, gripping her shoulders. Her lips trembled as she spoke, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Mom, someone's sitting in my closet. They're wearing your blue dress. If you're still watching, make sure to subscribe and comment where you're watching from. Because what I saw inside that closet changed everything I believed about fear, family, and forgiveness. My name is Laura Bennett. I'm a nurse, a single mother, and I thought I'd seen fear in all its forms. Until that night. I've spent years patching people up, calming families through tragedy, learning to stay strong when the world falls apart. But nothing prepares you for the sound of your own child saying those words. That blue dress. I hadn't touched it since my husband's funeral 2 years ago. It was sealed away in a storage box at the back of the hallway closet. How could it possibly be in her room? I locked the front door and guided Emily inside, trying to steady my breathing. She was trembling under my arm, her whole body shaking like she was caught in a cold she couldn't escape. "Sit down, sweetheart," I said, leading her to the couch. I opened the first aid kit and cleaned her cuts. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, every second stretching into forever. "Tell me everything that happened." She looked up at me with wide eyes. "I came home early. I went to my room and saw the closet door open just a little. I thought maybe I'd left it that way. But then I saw someone sitting there. Mom. They were still, like a doll, and they were wearing your blue dress. They didn't move, not even when I screamed." Her voice cracked on the last word. My stomach tightened. "Did you see their face?" I asked quietly. She shook her head. "No, but I could feel it. They were looking at me." That sentence chilled me more than anything. I've lived in this house for 8 years, and nothing about it ever felt unsafe. But now the walls seemed to close in. The shadows felt alive. I checked the windows, the locks, the corners. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. The blue dress she mentioned wasn't just any piece of clothing. It carried memories of grief, of my sister Claire, who used to borrow it before she disappeared years ago. A part of me wanted to believe Emily was mistaken, that maybe she was exhausted, imagining things. But her fear was real. Her voice, her shaking hands, her wide eyes. None of that was imagined. I could feel my instincts taking over. Protect first, question later. I told Emily to stay put, but she clutched my arm. "Mom, please don't go back there." "I have to," I said softly. "No one hides in my house." I walked to the cabinet and unlocked the drawer that held my gun. My hands were slick with sweat, but I couldn't let her see me hesitate. I loaded it, clicked off the safety, and looked down the hallway where her room waited in darkness. The air was heavy. The quiet was almost unnatural, the kind that makes you think something is listening. Every mother knows that mix of fear and courage, the one that forces you to walk straight into the thing you most want to run from. I had no idea that night would uncover a truth buried deep in our family, but before I found it, I had to open that door. Emily's trembling hadn't stopped. Her breathing came in short, uneven gasps as I tried to calm her down. I could feel her fear radiating through the air like static, heavy and invisible, but impossible to ignore. She gripped my hand tightly as I checked the locks once more, every click echoing through the quiet house. The night outside was still, the wind whispering faintly through the trees. But inside, everything felt different, charged, uncertain, like something unseen was watching us. I could tell she was on the verge of tears. Her hands were cold, her shoulders shaking beneath the blanket I'd wrapped around her. I crouched down beside her. "Sweetheart, listen to me," I said softly, keeping my voice steady. "You're safe now. No one is going to hurt you." But deep down, I wasn't sure I believed my own words. She looked at me with those frightened eyes, her voice barely audible. "Mom, I swear I saw someone. I saw their shadow move. They were sitting there, wearing your blue dress. It wasn't hanging, it was on someone, and when I screamed, they didn't move. Her words hit me like a physical blow. I've seen people in shock before, patients reliving trauma in the ER, their minds trapped in moments of terror. But this was my daughter. I knew the difference between imagination and raw fear. Emily wasn't lying. She wasn't exaggerating. She'd seen something real. I tried to think rationally. Maybe someone had broken in. Maybe a drunk stranger wandered off the highway. Maybe it was just a sick prank. But none of those explanations made sense. The blue dress was locked away in a storage box down the hall. How would anyone even know it existed? And why would they put it on? I took a deep breath and turned off the lights in the living room so my eyes could adjust to the darkness. The soft hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. I could hear Emily whispering a prayer under her breath. That sound broke me a little. She hadn't prayed like that since her dad's accident. I needed to protect her. That thought was the only thing keeping me steady. I opened the drawer under the stairs, took out the handgun, and checked the magazine. Loaded. Safety off. My father taught me to shoot when I was 16, said a woman should always know how to defend herself. I never imagined I'd actually need to use that lesson in my own home. Stay here, I told Emily, placing my hand on her shoulder. No matter what you hear, don't come upstairs. She looked up at me, her lips trembling. Mom, don't go. Please don't go up there. I have to, I said quietly. No one hides in our house. I walked toward the hallway, my steps slow and deliberate. The wood creaked under my feet, each sound sharper than the last. The air was colder now, unnaturally so. As I reached the bottom of the staircase, I could smell something faint and familiar. Old perfume, the kind that lingered in the air long after the bottle was gone. My heart began to pound harder. That scent shouldn't have been there. I hadn't worn that perfume since before Emily was born. When I reached her door, I noticed it was slightly ajar. A thin strip of moonlight cut through the gap, landing across the carpet. My fingers trembled as I pushed it open. Her room was dark except for the silver light from the window. The bed was unmade, her backpack lying on the floor, one shoe tipped over near the desk. Everything looked normal until I turned toward the closet. The door was half open. A shadow sat behind it, the shape of a human figure, completely still. My throat went dry. I could see the outline of the blue dress, the hem brushing against the floor, swaying slightly as if touched by a faint breeze. I raised the gun, trying to steady my hand. Who's there? My voice came out firmer than I felt. No response. I took one step closer. You need to come out. Now. Still nothing. The silence was deafening. I could hear only the ticking of the clock from the hallway and the faint sound of my own heartbeat in my ears. I thought about Emily downstairs, sitting alone, terrified. I couldn't show her that I was scared too. I took another step closer, the gun raised, my finger hovering near the trigger. The smell of perfume grew stronger, the same floral scent I used to wear years ago. It was like stepping into a memory I didn't want to remember. Then something shifted inside the closet. A faint sound, like fabric brushing against wood. My breath caught. The shadow tilted its head slowly toward me, the movement unnaturally smooth, as if whoever was inside was trying to mimic human motion. Show yourself, I demanded. For a second, the figure didn't move. Then, under the moonlight, I saw a hand, thin, pale, trembling, resting on the edge of the door. It didn't look like a man's hand. It looked fragile, almost feminine. The kind of hand that once belonged to someone I knew. I froze, my mind racing, my heart hammering in my chest. This wasn't a burglar. This wasn't a stranger. Whoever was in that closet knew us. They had to. I took one more step forward, my gun still raised, but my certainty faltering. I could hear Emily calling softly from downstairs, her voice shaking. Mom? Is everything okay? I didn't answer. My eyes were locked on the shadow in front of me. I was standing just a few feet away from the closet now, close enough to see that the figure wasn't sitting on the floor. They were perched on a small stool, facing me. The blue dress shimmered faintly under the light. And then I saw something that made the blood drain from my face. A glimmer of gold around the figure's neck. A locket. The same locket my sister Claire used to wear. My hand trembled. No, I whispered, under my breath, my voice cracking. Before I could move, the figure spoke in a soft, shaking voice. "You said I could wear it again, Laura." My knees nearly gave out. The voice wasn't unfamiliar. It was hauntingly close. And in that moment, I realized the truth. Whoever was sitting in my daughter's closet wasn't a stranger at all. For a long moment, I couldn't move. The voice that came from the closet was soft and cracked, but it hit me like a lightning bolt. "You said I could wear it again, Laura." I blinked, my brain struggling to make sense of what I'd just heard. That voice didn't belong to a stranger. It belonged to someone I hadn't seen in years. Someone I thought was gone forever. My hand tightened around the gun, my arms trembling as I took a cautious step forward. "Who are you?" I demanded, though part of me already knew. My voice wavered as the figure shifted slightly. The dress moved, its folds catching the faint light from the window. The smell of that old perfume, the same one Claire used to wear, grew stronger. My throat went dry. The figure lifted its head, but the face remained hidden in shadow. "Don't be afraid," the voice said again, quieter this time, almost pleading. "It's just me." Every memory I'd buried came flooding back. Our childhood, Claire's laughter echoing through our parents' farmhouse, the way she'd hum when she was nervous. And then the years of confusion, the diagnosis, the phone call about her breakdown, and the night she vanished after her car went off the bridge. They said no one could survive that fall. We buried an empty casket. Now, here I was, standing a few feet away from someone wearing my dead sister's face, or at least the memory of it. My mind raced. Could this really be her? Or was this someone who looked like her? Someone who knew too much? My hands shook so badly that the gun felt heavier by the second. "Claire?" I whispered, the name catching in my throat. The figure's shoulders began to tremble. "You remember me," she said, and a faint sob broke through the words. "You said I could come home." I lowered the gun slightly, torn between instinct and hope. "No," I said firmly. "You can't be her. Claire's dead." The figure leaned forward, and that's when I saw her face in the thin beam of moonlight. Pale skin, sunken eyes, hair tangled and matted. But beneath the exhaustion and dirt was something I couldn't deny. The same jawline, the same eyes that used to look at me across our shared bedroom as kids. I stumbled back a step. My chest ached, my mind spinning. "Oh my God," I whispered. "It's really you." She gave a small, tired smile. "I told you I'd come back. I told you I just needed time." Her voice was fragile, and she looked older than her years, worn down by something more than time, by pain. I wanted to believe her, but fear still gnawed at me. How had she found us? Why was she in Emily's closet? Why that dress? I swallowed hard and tried to keep my voice steady. "Claire, you scared Emily. She thought someone broke in. You can't just show up like this." Her eyes darted around the room as if she didn't understand. "Emily," she repeated softly, her tone strange and distant. "Your little girl. She reminds me of me." That sent another chill down my spine. "You've seen her before?" I asked sharply. Claire looked back at me with glassy eyes. "I've been watching for a while. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. I didn't want to scare you." Her words were gentle, but something about them felt wrong. Watching us? From where? For how long? I kept the gun lowered, but ready. "Claire, how did you get in the house?" "I never left," she said quietly. "You stopped looking for me, Laura, but I was here. I've been here all along." The room tilted slightly in my vision. I glanced at the window, half expecting to see someone outside, but there was nothing but the faint outline of the tree. "You're not making sense," I said. "You need help. Let me call someone." Her expression changed instantly. Panic flashed across her face. "No doctors, no police." I took another small step back. Her body tensed, like a cornered animal. The air between us felt heavy, unbreathable. "Claire, please," I said softly. "You need to tell me what happened. Everyone thought you died. Why didn't you come home?" She blinked slowly, her gaze falling to the locket around her neck. She held it gently between her fingers. "He told me not to. He said you wouldn't want me back." I frowned. "Who? Who told you that?" Her eyes flicked toward the window, then back to me. "Dad." My heart stopped. Our father had died 10 years ago. I shook my head, my stomach twisting. "Claire, Dad's gone. You know that." She tilted her head slightly, her voice suddenly calm. "He's still here, Laura. He talks to me. He tells me things about you, about Emily." I felt the blood drain from my face. I didn't know if she was hallucinating or if something deeper, Something darker was happening. From downstairs, I heard Emily call again, her voice breaking. "Mom, is everything okay?" Claire's head snapped toward the sound. Her eyes widened and she whispered, "She shouldn't be here. He doesn't like her here." I took a step forward, lowering my weapon even more. "Claire, listen to me. There's no one else here. You're safe. Just come downstairs with me." But she shook her head violently. "No, he's here, Laura. He's in the walls. He told me to wait for you." That was the moment I realized my sister wasn't just broken. She was lost, trapped somewhere her mind couldn't escape. I took another step forward, tears burning behind my eyes. "Claire, please. It's me. It's Laura. You're not alone anymore." Her face softened for a brief second. Then suddenly, she stood up. The stool scraped across the floor, and the sound made me flinch. Her eyes locked on mine. "Don't let him take her too," she said, her voice trembling. "Take who?" I asked. "Emily," she whispered. The silence that followed was suffocating. I didn't know what to believe anymore, whether my sister had lost her mind or whether something much worse had found its way into our home. But one thing was clear. The danger wasn't over. It had only just begun. The room was so still that even the sound of my breathing felt too loud. My sister stood in the doorway of the closet, her hair tangled, her eyes unfocused, but piercing straight through me. Her voice, shaky yet deliberate, echoed in my head. "Don't let him take her too." I didn't move for several seconds, my heart thudding so hard it hurt. I wanted to believe she was just confused, delusional from years of trauma, but there was something in her tone, something that didn't sound like madness. It sounded like warning. "Claire," I said carefully, lowering my gun, "there's no one here but us. You need to sit down. You're safe now." Her lips twitched into a strange half-smile. "Safe?" she repeated almost like a question. I thought so too. But he never really leaves, does he? I tried to stay calm. My training as a nurse had taught me how to talk to patients in psychosis. Keep your tone even. Don't argue. Keep them grounded in the moment. "Who are you talking about?" I asked gently. "Who's he?" Claire turned her head toward the window, her eyes wide and distant. "Dad," she whispered. "He comes when it's dark. He sits at the end of the bed. He talks to me, just like before." My whole body went cold. "Claire, Dad's been gone for 10 years, I said quietly. She laughed under her breath, a soft, broken sound. "No, Laura, he's never gone. You know that. He's in the house. He always was." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. The air around us suddenly felt heavier, pressing down on my chest. I'd grown up in that same house with our father. He'd been a strict man, distant, but not cruel. Or at least that's what I had let myself believe. But hearing Claire speak his name with such terror made something deep inside me twist. "Claire," I said, stepping forward, "you're confused. We're not home anymore. You're in my house. There's no one here but me, you, and Emily." Her eyes snapped back to mine. "You shouldn't have brought her here," she said, her voice trembling. "He doesn't like little girls. She stopped suddenly, as if realizing what she was about to say. Her mouth clamped shut, and she backed against the closet wall, clutching the blue dress to her chest. I froze, my mind spinning. "What did you say?" I demanded. "What do you mean he doesn't like little girls?" She didn't answer. Tears welled up in her eyes as she shook her head. "I shouldn't have told you. He gets angry when I talk." The fear in her voice wasn't the kind that comes from imagination. It was the kind that's learned. I realized then that there were pieces of our childhood I didn't remember clearly. Nights when Claire would crawl into my bed, crying, whispering things I didn't understand. I'd always thought it was nightmares. But now, standing in front of her, those fragments came back sharper, darker. I took a deep breath and forced myself to stay steady. "Claire, you're not a little girl anymore," I said softly. "He can't hurt you. He can't hurt any of us." She blinked, her expression softening for just a moment. "That's what I thought," she said. "But he found me again. He told me you replaced me. With her." She pointed toward the door, toward where Emily's voice had come from moments earlier. My blood ran cold. "No," I said firmly. "That's not true. You're sick, Claire. You need help. Let me call someone. We can get you treatment, medication." a safe place. But Claire's body stiffened. He doesn't like when I talk about it, she whispered. He said if I did, he'd come for her. He said she looks just like me. Her words sliced through me like a knife. I felt my pulse quicken. Emily has nothing to do with this, I said, my voice trembling with anger and fear. Suddenly, a noise came from downstairs. A faint creak, like footsteps. My head snapped toward the doorway. Claire's face turned white. See? She whispered. He's here. I gripped the gun tighter, every nerve in my body on edge. Stay here, I said. Claire shook her head violently. No, Laura, don't go down there. You won't like what you see. Ignoring her, I turned toward the hallway. The house was dark, the only light spilling from Emily's phone downstairs. Mom? She called again, her voice small. I'm coming, I shouted back, trying to sound calm. Halfway down the stairs, I stopped. Something felt wrong. The air was colder, heavier. I could smell the same faint perfume again, but I was nowhere near the closet. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw movement in the living room. A shadow slipped past the wall, tall and slow. Emily? I said cautiously. No answer. I reached the bottom of the stairs, the gun trembling in my hand. The living room light flickered once and then went out completely. My breath hitched. Then I heard a low whisper, a man's voice, coming from near the couch. You shouldn't have opened that door. The sound froze me in place. My blood turned to ice. That voice didn't belong to Claire. It didn't belong to anyone alive. Who's there? I said, forcing the words out. No reply, just the faint sound of something dragging along the floor, slow and deliberate. I turned toward the sound, raising the gun, my finger ready. But when I switched on the flashlight, there was nothing. No figure, no movement, just Emily huddled in the corner, crying. I ran to her, pulling her into my arms. Mom, I heard him, she sobbed. He was talking to me. He said I looked just like Aunt Claire. My stomach turned. I held her tighter, my eyes scanning the dark corners of the room. Claire was still upstairs, muttering to herself. I didn't know what was real anymore, whether I was losing my mind or whether something I couldn't explain had truly followed us here. But one thing was certain, my daughter was in danger, and whatever haunted my sister had found its way into my home. The house never felt the same after that night. For weeks, every sound made me jump. Every flicker of light made me look over my shoulder. I kept the gun beside my bed, though I hadn't fired a shot. The police came the next morning, after I finally called them, but by then, Claire was gone. The closet stood empty, the stool overturned, and the blue dress lay folded neatly on the floor, like someone had set it there with care. There were no footprints, no sign of a break-in, and no sign of my sister. The officers thought she might have fled through the woods, still in a state of psychosis. I wanted to believe that, but deep down, I wasn't sure that was the truth. Emily barely slept for days. She'd wake up crying, saying she heard whispering in her room at night. I moved her into my bedroom, keeping her close, but the fear lingered in both of us. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night to the sound of soft humming coming from somewhere down the hall, the same tune Claire used to hum when we were kids. I'd get up, walk toward it, and find nothing but silence. It was as if the house itself had absorbed her presence, like her spirit was stitched into its walls. I tried to focus on reality. I told myself Claire was sick, that she'd found a way into our house and frightened us without meaning to. I filed a missing persons report and called every hospital and mental health center in the state. No one had seen her. The more I searched, the more the world around me seemed to unravel. Emily became distant, quieter. She'd stare at nothing for long stretches, her hands clutching that same blue locket I found a few days later on the kitchen counter, the one Claire had been wearing. I didn't remember bringing it down from her room. When I asked Emily where she got it, she said, Aunt Claire gave it to me. She said I'll need it when the time comes. My stomach turned. When what time comes? I asked. Emily just looked at me and said, when he comes back. Those words haunted me. I thought about them every day, wondering if Claire had passed her fear onto my daughter, or if there was truly something she had seen that night. Maybe she'd been living with her hallucinations for so long that she believed they were real. Or maybe, just maybe, they were. A few days later, I went back into Emily's room for the first time since that night. The police had dusted for prints, leaving behind a faint, powdery residue on the walls. I stood in front of the closet, staring at the spot where Claire had sat. The air felt heavy again, cold and dry. I touched the locket around my neck. Emily had given it back to me that morning. Inside was a small, faded picture of Claire and me as children, our arms wrapped around each other, both smiling. But behind the photo, pressed deep into the metal, there was a tiny folded note. My hands shook as I opened it. The paper was yellowed and brittle, clearly old. In faint pencil, I could just make out the words, "If I ever come back, don't be afraid. I just want to come home." Tears blurred my vision. I sank to the floor, clutching the note, the locket, and the weight of everything I'd lost. Claire hadn't meant to hurt us. She'd been broken long before that night. The real monster was the silence, the years we let pass without helping her, the years we let her fade away while convincing ourselves she was gone for good. That night, I lit a candle in the hallway and whispered a prayer for her. I didn't know if it was for the dead or the living. I just hoped she could hear me. The flame flickered suddenly, bending toward the closet door, and for a split second, I thought I smelled her perfume again. Soft, floral, comforting. And for the first time since that night, I didn't feel fear. I felt peace. Emily and I eventually moved out of that house. We packed only what we needed, leaving the blue dress behind. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. Some things are meant to stay where they belong, even if they carry ghosts. We moved into a small cottage near town, closer to people, closer to light. Sometimes Emily still asks about her aunt. "Do you think she's still out there?" she'll say, her voice soft and curious. I always answer the same way. I think she's finally home. But even now, years later, there are moments when the night is too still, or when I catch that faint trace of old perfume in the air, where I find myself looking toward the shadows, half expecting to see her standing there, smiling, wearing that same blue dress. And in those moments, I don't feel terror anymore. I feel love, a love twisted by pain, lost in madness, but still love all the same. I learned that sometimes the monsters we fear are not evil. They're broken hearts searching for a way back. And sometimes forgiveness is the only way to quiet them. That night didn't just change how I saw my sister. It changed how I saw everything, the living, the dead, and the space between. Because when I opened that closet door, I wasn't just facing my past, I was facing the truth we'd both been running from our whole lives. If you believe that even the darkest stories can hold light, subscribe to my channel and comment where you're watching from. I'd love to know who's listening tonight, and I hope you remember, sometimes the scariest things we face aren't strangers in the dark. They're the people we loved trying to come home.